It's a bit of an irony to go in search of the pure land in the acrid and poisonous air of an industrial suburb, but that's where we went next. Mr. Kumata took me to the Sugita Wireworks in Tokyo. The Sugitas have a dynasty too, and this is the current patriarch. He comes over as tough, poised, self-reliant, a natural industrial fighter. It's hard to think of him saying, I rely on anything outside himself, even Amida Buddha, but he's a devoted Pure Land believer. Why, I said as we went round the works, don't you go in for Zen? I should think self-reliance would appeal to you. Zen takes time, he said. I've got my hands full here. Once a month, workers, neighbours, anyone who wants to, joins Mr. Sugita in the room next to his office for a Pure Land service. By the way, the chants, the sermon, the minister in the black gown are evidently meant to look Protestant. I was told how last century Protestant missions had made some gains and the Buddhists picked up the style. But the likeness ends there. These are not prayers to a god for what he may do next, but thanks to the Buddha for what he's done already, which, in Mr. Sugita's words, is to fill the world with limbs of his compassion, drawing us all up towards him. He's talking about a great northern Buddhist theme. You hear it time after time, the idea of the Bodhisattva. The Buddha, the Bodhisattva. The question, what's the connection, gets various answers. Here's the one I heard most often. Let's say, just for now, that a Buddha is a being who has passed quite beyond the reach of time, history, rebirth, and suffering. It's even wrong to think of him as a being at all. The Bodhisattva is one standing poised for Buddhahood who, instead of going forward, reaches back so that he can take the rest of us, animals and all, along with him. Buddhists can no more sculpt the compassion of the Buddha than Christians can sculpt the love of God, but they try. Placid faces, slender frames, and infinite helping hands for countless helpless creatures, animals, insects, men, microbes. It's the idea of the great Saviour. I kept being drawn back to this gallery, which houses 1,001 forms of the Bodhisattva of compassion. It's the place I'd choose in all Kyoto if I wanted to muse on the idea of the Bodhisattva. A thought. Jesus, in the eyes of Christians, is one Saviour, one God. I wonder if a Japanese Buddhist reading the Christian Gospels might see him as one Saviour among many, as a great Bodhisattva. Halfway through this particular search, I might have spoken of two forms of Buddhism pointing opposite ways. Zen, pointing to self-reliance, and Pure Land, pointing to self-abandonment. I even found two Japanese words to cover them, one meaning self-help, and the other meaning help of another. But now I'm not so sure. What the two sides share seems of more consequence than where they differ. They are each mounting an assault, they tell you, on blind ego, on what they call a deluded belief that we are permanent, separate, self-sufficient entities. The styles, of course, vary. You don't have to be told that a young man wielding a stick is very different from an old woman singing a hymn. But they are not rivals. They share one destination. All I can say is that Pure Land gave me new eyes for Zen. Zen, said the archery master, is easy. The target is myself. I reach the point of no effort. The arrow leaves the bow. Buddhism, they say, is like a thorn you use to remove another thorn, the thorn of self. When the thorn of self is out, there's no more use for Buddhism. Throw it away. Tea with two Zen tea masters. The story goes that tea was brought from China to Japan by Zen monks who found it kept them fresh. How different, I thought, from the tea bag ceremony, as it is widely known in the West. That is, a bag flung in a cup, casually submerged in boiling water, and left to stew. The purpose of the meeting is to be all there, not passing through on the way somewhere else. The water boils. The sound changes. He whisks the tea. Before you study Zen, said the tea master, a bowl is a bowl and tea is tea. While you're studying Zen, a bowl is no longer a bowl and tea is no longer tea. When you're enlightened, a bowl is again a bowl and tea is tea.
これはご先代のお手づくねですね。お懐かしますね。お互いに。
They're admiring the tea bowl.
いいお方でございますか。ありがとうございます。
目が遠山とかですな。そうですか。
Japan is often called the land of the rising sun. After this trip, I may have to call it the land of the disappearing Buddha. The single question, who is the Buddha, produces answers as various as you, me, this stick, nothing, a dead teacher, truth, the thingness of a thing, an empty circle, compassion, or a shake of the head, until you start to wonder if maybe you've asked something silly. Wouldn't it be wonderful if there were a Zen creed, or a Zen prayer, or a Zen image that you could point to and say, believe that, recite that, adore that, and you'll suddenly know what Zen is all about? But there isn't. There simply isn't. Not only that, I sometimes get the feeling that Zen is mounting an endless protest, a mute sit-in against any attempt to reduce complex things to a simple formula that says, that's how it is, when it certainly isn't. This is Daitokuji, a Zen monastery, and I've come to see the abbot. Look one way and there's room after room with mats, screens, no furniture. Look the other way and there's always a garden. The abbot is Master Kobori. I had a feeling that I should walk extremely quietly. This was a natural feeling. Is this a deliberate intention on your part to keep sound very low?
Well, yes. One of the characteristics of the mind is quietude. Therefore, even unconsciously, we walk very quietly.
In the houses of many men who belong to religions, one sees images. In this building, I see a circle and various other forms which are not of a person. Has the Buddha disappeared in this house?
Well, there is Buddha for those who do not know what he is really. There is no Buddha for those who knows what he is really.
There is Buddha for those who do not know what he is really. There is no Buddha for those who know what he is really. What is the most important single thing that a man should do in his life?
To know himself. Not only through idea, but through his total being. I believe it.
And out of all the Zen activities I've looked at, archery, calligraphy, sword fighting, Zazen meditation, which is the one a man should start with?
I can say Zazen, sitting meditation.
But the sitting meditation looks so stiff and deliberate.
Yes, in the beginning it is conscious, deliberate, formal. Everything is so, the beginning. It cannot be natural from the beginning.
It looks physically, certainly from most Westerners, extremely difficult to get your knees onto the ground, to have your ears and nose and belly in the right order. Why is it so important to be exact about those things?
Well, that is the physically most balanced state. Physically. Just like stone placed on the ground. if stone is round, this will be moved by wind. But if it is exactly square, then it cannot be moved easily.
Now a stone or a frog sits naturally, without effort. I wonder if that's the clue I'm looking for. On a windy day, I went to a Zen training monastery in Kobe to find out. When I was there, the novices were sitting 5 hours a day with short breaks, but sittings can last sometimes 18 hours, sometimes longer. No one here takes religious vows. He stays till he or the master decides he should go. It's not unusual for employers in industry to send new recruits for a period of Zen training to toughen them up. The day starts early, ends late, and has no slack in it. In the meditation hall, they give a misleading impression of solemnity, but they're not so solemn to talk to, and the biggest laugh I heard was when I said to one of them, "Can you describe what it's like to be enlightened?" The novice master compared the slap on the shoulder with the slap on the backside of a newborn child. Both may need it to come to life. But isn't it entirely selfish, this concentration on your own state of mind, your own enlightenment? I took the problem to the abbot, Master Yamada Mumon, head of 2 monasteries, the man who's in print as saying that Zen in Japan is dead and ought to be re-imported from America.
この通り笑いました。
He held a stick, and I had an alert feeling that at any moment he might hit me. What's the connection, I asked, between Zazen, sitting meditation, and having compassion for other creatures?
座禅をすると我もなくなり。
Sitting in Zazen, he said, I become nothing, and everything becomes nothing. That is to say, I and everything melt into one. So when I see a flower, the flower is I. When I see the moon is I. All things become I. There is no greater love than this. Can Zen, I asked, ever be popular, or must it always be something for the elite?
昔の政治家は
His answer propelled me out of the Japanese tradition and into the one I was born in. He quoted Jesus. Unless the heart becomes that of a little child, a man cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Zazen is becoming a little child.
叩き直せねえかんと思って。
If he had to say one thing about Zen, I asked, would it be that?
赤子のような心に
The baby, he replied, has no knowledge and no experience. It is a zero. Yes.
なかなか赤子になれないから難しい。
But zero, to me, means emptiness, vacancy. Could he explain, I asked him, how a zero can be something so desirable? So he took a stick and he balanced it on his finger. The past, he said, pointing to one side, won't come back. And the future, pointing to the other, has yet to happen. And here, pointing to the pivot, is the present. No extent, no substance, no permanence. Yet, if abundance is anywhere, here's where it has to be, in the empty moment, because that's all we've got. The day ended with an event literally beyond description. Seen from the outside, a meeting took place, as it does every day, between the novices and the abbot. It centres on the koan, a puzzle set by the master, a device to stop the mind in its tracks. It might be, what is the sound of one hand clapping? What was your original face before you were born? Does a dog have Buddha nature? And there are supposedly 1,700 more. I suppose in his place my koan would be, where is the Buddha? The answer, what anyone does or says, is something transmitted between novice and abbot, and them only. The novice repeated his koan. Does a dog have Buddha nature? His words were, you must put your strength in your abdomen, your middle, enter the state where there is no I and no world, and speak from emptiness. A word with the lips alone is no good.